And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winnick. I'm the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage, and you're joining us on the podcast today, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. Today, my guest is Andrew Gottlieb. Andrew is the CEO and founder of No Typical Moments, which is an online customer acquisition company that aligns with impactful companies and brands who are championing new ways to advance humanity and leave the world a better place. Let's just dive in here. You've got a cool company on sort of two levels, Andrew. One is there's a passion, mission driven piece to it, and that separates you from others in your space in terms of the types of clients that you work with, et cetera. And then ultimately, what is it that you all do is an online digital lead generation agency, which is something that people have a hard time understanding as well. So let's start with the key differentiator of the passion piece, and then move into the nuts and bolts of what it looks like on a day to day.
Sure. So I'm really excited to be on the podcast today. And as a little background as a company structure, how we're purpose driven, then I can also speak into the type of clients that we work with at our digital marketing agency. So
Sure.
at the onset, so we're actually about to end our seventh year of operation. This is the longest relationship I've been in my life. And
The commitment issues, or is that's another podcast? We'll get to that later.
That's another podcast. Technically, I've been ultra monogamous and protective of my Pittsburgh Steelers. That's going on 30 years. So I know of it in me to be committed to a relationship. And at the onset of the organization, it was really created with a purpose, something bigger than just being an ordinary digital marketing agency. And it's been adjusted throughout the years of what exactly that looks like. There's actually a point in time at the beginning of the company where 50% of our client work was pro bono with nonprofit organizations. And I love that. And simultaneously, it felt like our portfolio was really divided down the middle. We had these for profit companies that weren't doing anything bad for the world, but they simultaneously weren't really making a positive impact. And then we had these amazing nonprofits we were supporting for free that were saving starving kids in Haiti. And I started to learn more and more about this world that existed that merges both. And there are for profit companies out there who have a higher purpose to their work. And the prime example is Patagonia.
Yep. Yep.
They're ridiculously financially successful, and they clearly have a higher purpose to why they're in business.
Yep.
So we adjusted a few things at the company. So structurally, we actually shifted our legal status. Finally, at the beginning of this year, it took 2.5 years to get this all organized, but we're now officially a benefit corporation. So it's the same legal status as Patagonia, which means we're a for-profit company, but we have a charter like a nonprofit to make the world a better place. And then simultaneously, we started to hone in on clients who could pay us and simultaneously have a clear mission to make the world a better place. And over the years, that's really been niched down into working with authors that have a specific mission to advance humanity.
Fantastic. So it used to be we lived in a world where you can choose to do good or do well, right? So work with nonprofits and starve, or go out there as a raving capitalist and make a ton of money. What I love about B Corps is sort of the compromise on both sides, right? That you can do good and do well. So I want to talk about first. Let's just go into sort of lead generation, digital marketing, because that's an area that a lot of folks that we work with, a lot of folks that are listening today, they're curious about, they're afraid of, they might have had a bad experience. So why don't we start with the product, like things that work best? Because not every modality, or not every strategy, I should say, works well for everything. So let's talk about, when you're bringing on a client, you want them to win, you want to win, you want a happy client. What works best in terms of the types of products, offerings, and services that authors and thought leaders produce that work through a digital lead generation system?
So usually when I say authors, we have done book launches, and book launches don't tend to generate a ton of profit.
Right.
You point to the brand and they introduce you to other courses, events, whatever it looks like for that specific
Yep.
brand. So one of the things that we're big, I would say the main thing authors come to us to market is their online courses and events. And I would say before we decide to say yes as an agency to work with an organization, there's a few things that I'll look at structurally behind the scenes. So first is, have they ever tested this offer out with their list or affiliates? And if they've yet to test it with any type of warm traffic in those two areas, I usually actually turn them down, and I recommend they get a JV or affiliate strategy going. See if that is producing sales. Have they even sold it through their list yet? And start with that, and then come back to us. The other thing is the clear expectations of goals. So we do have clients. We're working with a brand right now, and it's a live launch, and they've kind of dabbled internally with ads, and now they brought an agency, which is supposed to be the delegation and scaling to experts of your business. And it's been phenomenal. I think we've had like a 15K ad spend, and we probably have generated close to 80,000 in revenue so far in this live launch. So pretty dramatic ROI. And it's working for them because one, they've tested it internally, so they know that their conversion is working. They have the actual marketing spend budget, and this worked out perfectly, and it was a live launch, which is really, it has to work. There's not really a backup plan, but if it's an evergreen offer, making sure that you're capitalized so you can drive traffic for 90 days and see what happens after the end of 90 days. Is usually what happens is the first month you're going to lose a little money in your split test. Second month, if you're starting to break even, amazing. And third month, you're starting to turn a profit.
Got it.
And ideally, you have the budget and the capital to have a little bit of sunk cost up front to do that testing. That's really necessary.
Yeah. So let me unpack. There's so much that you said there for folks that are early on. So go into the sort of the product side. So forget books for a minute, because books, even though technically they're a product, there's sort of different book math that we do. So books from a straight up ROI of how many dollars you're making per unit, not a good measurement. But what are the typical derivatives that an author, speaker, thought leader could create? So you said an online course. So let's talk about what that looks like, what they might price it for, who they're targeting for. Because when you're talking about demand gen for an online course in this way, that's a direct to consumer play typically. So let's first break it out. Is it B2B? Is it B2C? Price point? What are some of the top 5 things you would advise folks when looking into this?
Sure. Maybe I can take one of our best case studies as a client and kind of reverse engineer at a high level what's going on with this brand. So this is with Lisa Nichols. She's been in the author space for, I don't know, 20 plus years. So we've been working with her as a client for a little over 6 years now. And she started to shift her business model into online course sales about 2 years ago this January. So I think January 18 is when they started to make that shift.
Okay.
I want to say that's when it was. And what we do is we have a Facebook ad that's targeted to a few different groups. So she has a huge online community in which we run ads to her fans, her list.
So wait, but I want to slow you down because you're putting out so much information here. So step one, because I think this is, I'm trying to sort of document for folks where to compare and contrast yourself. Step one, you said she has a huge online community. So I would take the inverse of that, is if your step one is you have no social presence, I'm going to think this will work less well for you.
Correct. There's 3 buckets you could target. If you have a big online community, you can run ads to your fans, your email list, and website traffic.
Yep.
If you don't have an online community, maybe you have a very small list of like 1,000 people. Maybe you have 500 Facebook fans. You can create what's called a lookalike audience. So you input that data into Facebook, and then Facebook says, here's a million other people who match similar demographic and psychographic information as this audience you just uploaded.
So it applies some magical algorithm and says, whatever, whether that's by geography, educational level, demographics, psychographics, whatever. It says, okay, we looked at your list and here's a bunch of other people that sort of kind of look like the folks on your list.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And if you don't have a list, you don't have a social media following, that's where your customer avatar comes into play.
Yep.
And that's when you say to Facebook, my avatar is a 30 to 55-year-old man who lives in Southern California, who income levels above a certain threshold, who maybe likes certain interest sets or like certain business pages.
Got it. If you're enjoying this episode of Leveraging Thought Leadership, please make sure to subscribe. If you'd like to help spread the word about our podcast, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. We're available on Apple Podcast and on all major listening apps, as well as at thoughtleadershipleverage.com/podcasts. So I want to push that one further. Earlier, you said that on a 3-month campaign, you've got to, give it time to ramp up. The first month, not so much, et cetera, et cetera. Was that in the context of someone that's already got a following, or is it a different set of metrics if I have a small following and have to find the lookalikes?
Good question. So 100%, if you're launching your first ever campaign, that 100% applies. If you're a really big brand like Elisa Nichols, we've worked with Eckhart Tolle throughout the years, you have a much higher likelihood of launching and generating profit right out the bat because you have such brand equity in the marketplace already.
And so if you're an Eckhart Tolle or someone along those lines, you've got a loyal following, you've got a long history. There's probably been some pre-work done on the social side that they know you have something new coming, whether that's a book or a video learning system or something. So it's not a cold shock to the system. You've been priming folks, and then bang, launch comes, and there's a response.
Right. So the brand I mentioned that we're in a live launch with right now, granted, they haven't truly scaled out their Facebook advertising campaign, but they brought some good assets and community to the table already. So we were very optimistic that we could create results in a live launch for him.
Okay, because you want to set your clients' expectations up front. Cool.
Exactly.
So let's go back to price points and such of a course. Does it, I would imagine, but I don't know that it works. It's more effective for some sort of $100 project than a $5,000 project.
Right. So if you're selling something, I would say $1,000 and below, you could probably get away with selling that from a webinar.
Okay.
When you're starting to elevate your price point above $1,000, it's probably going to require you to actually have a sales rep pick up the phone and have a meeting. So I can give another example of a client we did a launch with last spring, and they run certification training program for health coaches,
Okay.
and it's a $12,000 price point.
Okay.
So with that funnel, we never sent someone straight from Facebook to buy. We built up a big webinar for her, and from the webinar, she still didn't make any offers to buy. It was actually a appointment with one of their representatives to talk about their certification training program.
Okay. So you intentionally eliminated the impulse buy, right? Because of the price point. You said nobody's buying a $12,000 impulse price point unless you're a Kardashian or something, right? So there wasn't even a buy it now. So you said, come on in, let's go to this webinar, low key, not pressure for sales. And the CTA, the call to action off the webinar was, hey, if this is interesting to you, let's have a conversation, right? So very
Exactly.
now, if you use that same strategy for a $99 product, you'd probably be broke, right? It would need to be self-serve.
Yeah.
Okay. So talk about, like, is there a sweet spot of, I mean, you said under 1,000, is there a sweet spot of between A and B that, like, wow, this, if you've got something at this price point, you're not doing it this way, you're missing the boat.
I would say if it's 197 or over, that's where it should start from a bottom threshold.
Okay. Got it. And I just want to make sure I understand again, context again. The 197, whose money is that? Am I a manager at a company? I'm expensing that back up to corporate. Is it I'm an entrepreneur? Is it I'm a consumer at home and it's an Eckhart Tolle thing that's intriguing to me? Or who are we selling to here?
Sure. So the other reason that I said 197, I can clarify, is if it's a product that has a tangible monetary return. For instance, Lisa's speaker training, I believe, is $500, and that's very clear. Of you book one speaking gig, you're easily going to get your money back.
Yeah, and then some. Sure.
Versus, I'm thinking of the live launching, and I'll bring that up. I believe that was only a $197 product because it was much more about meditation and consciousness, which doesn't necessarily have a financial return on it.
Okay, so I'm a fan. I enjoy it. I'm passionate about it, but it's not like I'm quote investing 197 into my meditation practice because it's going to yield me, some multiple of that.
Exactly. And we have another client who they offer training for parents whose kids have ADHD.
Okay.
So it's emotional intelligence training for parents to have better relationships with their kids, which clearly has no financial ROI attached to it.
Right, but is valuable nonetheless.
Yeah, extremely valuable. Versus, a $12,000 certification training program, they're going through all the logistics of how to set up your business, how to attract clients. And if you take this seriously for a year, you're going to make your money back and then some with this program.
Got
That's another reason. I don't know, selling $12,000 to better improve your communication with your kid is it's worth it, but it's gonna be a little bit more challenging for that higher
it.
price
Okay.
point.
So you got to have an understanding of the price point, understanding the modality, understanding of the psychology there. It sounds like most of what you're selling, though, is more into the end user being a consumer. I'm spending my money. Did I get that right or not?
Correct. We don't have many B2B clients where we're selling to like the CMO at a company.
Okay.
We do have clients who are entrepreneurs, but they may be more solopreneur or they have like a virtual assistant, or they're, a client of Lisa Nichols who is looking to become a public speaker.
Okay. So it's a business, but it's not a large corporate entity, right? It's
Exactly.
more of a solopreneur. Okay, because solopreneur is basically from a buy standpoint, it's the same emotional impulse buy. They don't have to go through a committee. If it's my company and I'm a speaker and I want to generate more speaking gigs, I don't have to wait for a budgeting cycle or a committee of 9 people.
Exactly.
Okay, I understand. What other suggestions would you have for folks? Let's say it's early for them and they're earlier in the process and earlier in the system and they don't have the following. So talk a little bit about things that you can do 2-3 years before you do anything, right? Before you actually have the product and you're ready to rock and roll and kill it. Like what should I be thinking about now if this is something I want to even consider down the road?
Yeah, in terms of becoming an author and launching your first advertising
Yeah,
campaign.
yeah. If I'm thinking that might be something down the road, but I don't have the followership and all that, I guess where I was going is sort of what are the things that I can be doing now at a sort of a slow burn level to increase my awareness, increase my followership, etc.
Yeah, so I think this ultimately goes back to like the very early stages of building a company, and you need to get on the street and talk to your potential customers
Okay,
and just learn deeply about their pains, their hopes, their dreams, their aspiration, what's going on in their life. And that's going to influence not only the product you're creating, but also the marketing moving forward because you're going to be speaking directly to them.
got it.
And I would say in terms of a offer progression, like I mentioned earlier, whatever list building strategy you undertake, whether it's some SEO, you're doing guest blogging, podcasting, I would definitely recommend testing your offer via your list, developing some affiliates, and once those are producing some revenue for you, then I would start flirting with the idea of expanding into paid media.
Good stuff. All right. So last thought as we start to wind up here is, we opened with your discussion around your company being purpose driven and that being a differentiator for you in the marketplace, attracting purpose driven companies. How, if at all, does that manifest itself when you're deploying campaigns on behalf of your clients in terms of language that they use, or how is that represented to the client's clients or clients prospects, I should say, that this is a purpose driven company, or isn't it?
Yeah. So we have a methodology that we haven't fully flushed out and have made public, but we're calling it impact with profits. So it's exactly to that point of we work with clients who are more in the conscious business space and they want copy, graphics, campaigns that don't reflect, in my opinion, like the traditional douchey internet marketing world. It's really important for us to put together strategies and campaigns that align with that. Like, for instance, we're not going to run a Eckhart Tolle campaign and have like mega scarcity in it. That's just not who he is. That's completely off brand of bringing scarcity into the fold.
Only three left, right? Call by two, right? Like probably not going to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
in line, right? Right.
yeah. That'd just be weird seeing it ad from Eckhart Tolle using the language. And it's also part of the hiring of who we bring into the organization that our copywriter designers who are handling a lot of the creative development, they themselves, we tend to attract a lot of coaches who are either coaching on the side, they were a coach, They're into personal growth and development. This is really their world. So we're very particular who we bring into the organization who actually cares about this space. And we believe that influences the creatives that are developed, which ultimately I believe they have a better relationship with the end user because the end user is themselves.
Got it. Well, this has been great. Any last tips for anybody?
Yeah, I would say the make or break of a lot of our relationships is the upfront goal setting. So I'd be very clear with your numbers. What can you afford to spend, whether it's if you hire an agency, your ad spend, and really map out what goals could look like for you. This is something that starts off slowly. And once you start to build some results, you can put more money into it. And we believe in starting slowly, conservatively, and as money and a positive ROI comes in, to deploy more money into it and increase ultimately the revenue and profit coming back to the
Well,
business.
fantastic. This has been great, Andrew. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate there's so much information that's in here that's foreign to so many of us. But I appreciate you diving in and teaching us all a thing or two about online lead generation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.